5 shots of espresso. Here we go.
Here we go.
All right. Welcome to Tiff Talks. I'm super excited to have Lauren here. Oh my God.
Let's get started.
Been waiting for this moment. So I have to tell you, our meeting is very serendipitous or just very, very crazy. And it's the best. Those are the best stories. I mean, she's like my soul sister for real. But so I used to do phone sales for ADT. And yeah, so I like to talk to people. Shocking.
Okay, I need to back you up first because there is a story behind the call to ADT.
Yeah.
So my mother, who is psycho about security, right? She's like, you have to have a house alarm. And we've been living in the house for a year and didn't have a house alarm. And so she was like, before you go on your...
But this was a different house than the one you're in right now.
Correct. Yeah, this is our first house. And so we were about to go on our honeymoon for, a couple weeks. And so she was like, you cannot leave for Hawaii without
a security
system. And I was like, Mom, have you quoted or have you priced out a security system lately? They are wildly expensive. And she's like, okay, just get it. I'll pay for it. And I was like, are you insane? No, you don't have to pay for a security system. She's like, yeah, get it before you leave because I'm terrified, that a robber's going to come in while you're in Maui.
She doesn't even live there.
No, she doesn't live there. And so that's what prompted the call. So ADT.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Because you never would have met me if not.
That's
So it's
true.
kind of funny that she was like that. I mean, I love that. That's an amazing kind of backstory that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because then whenever I meet your mom, I can thank her.
Yes.
Because
So you were my security alarm.
yeah,
Sales phone
person.
sales.
Yeah.
Yes. 10 years ago.
God. Yeah, I just
10
looked
years
it up
ago.
on social media. So thank God for social media because otherwise, if we didn't have social media, like there's a lot of valuable relationships that can occur thanks to social media, which I think is so cool. I was like going through all the notifications where I was like wishing you happy birthday. I'm like, she didn't even like my comments.
Oh, stop. I probably never saw it.
I was like, I have beef now.
Can you start liking
Can you
my
go
stuff,
back
please?
and heart all of my happy birthdays to you? But then there was one where I was like, babe, I miss you. We need a phone date. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. That was early on, though, that we had like a little drought. I'm just kidding.
Oh, my God.
I was just like, she never wished me happy birthday.
I didn't even know. This week I was thinking back. I'm like, how did we,
Thankfully, I always see your stuff. And then
social.
like if I didn't see your stuff, then I would probably like find you. But I feel like you've just always been in my thread ever since then for whatever sets of reasons, even though you live in a completely different state than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. And I just always thought you were an interior designer.
Lots of people do.
Freaking house, dude. Your new couch is killing me.
It's pretty amazing.
It is
reclines.
so amazing.
It reclines. Yeah.
Is that from like a local furniture
It
store down
is.
there?
Mhm. It was either green couch or camel leather. And
Yeah, camel leather is in right now. I'm so
Yes.
here for it. That is like my jam.
yeah, it's warm, right?
Yeah, it's just so, I feel like it's like timeless. I
Yeah.
know that it seems like it's just kind of coming about, but it's not. I feel like it's always been around, but it's so classy now.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed.
Leather scares me.
I love
Right?
leather.
Like 3 kids. I don't need leather.
No.
But
That color scares me in leather for kids for you because mine's very dark. My leather is very dark,
that's probably what it should be.
but it's very wipeable. So baby wipes are great,
Yes.
but ink pens definitely will show on that.
Terrified.
Mhm.
Yeah. We're
And-
just going to take the ink pens out of the house.
Yes,
Nobody,
no ink pen.
I don't know where they are.
Right. Ink pens,
Markers?
what?
What do you
I've-
need? You need a
It's
marker.
2025, yo.
We don't use markers anymore.
You don't?
No, I'm saying we don't now.
we don't. Creativity is off the table.
Yeah.
Unless it is outside.
Yeah. You want to paint? See outside.
See outside.
You want to draw? Sorry, outside
Bye.
activity. Everything's an outside activity now.
We live outside now.
You can't be inside.
We only sleep inside. And only mommy and daddy sit on the couch.
I told the nanny for summer, I'm like, you have one job, and it's to protect that new couch.
I love that for you. That's a whole new level of anxiety that I don't want to deal with right
It
now.
is. Yeah.
But that's definitely on my list. I wanted to get a couple chairs like that.
Camel leather?
Mhm.
You should.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
I'll let
My
you
house
know.
is a total dumpster fire, so I probably won't. I think I'm just going to save up for Italy instead. Unless I get
That
on
sounds good.
your level there.
Italy.
Well, I don't know if you saw the manifesting podcast, but G-Wagons were on the list. And I was like, maybe
We did.
maybe
I
I'll
talked to you about
retract
a
the G-Wagon and just go into a Mercedes luxury vehicle that's a lot cheaper and do lots of other things with that other money that I could have for the G-Wagon.
So
But if you see me driving a G-Wagon, you know I've like won the lottery.
if Matthew and I started dating, I think I was still finishing my MBA. And I had a picture of an X5 Beamer on the
Nice.
fridge. You know, I was, again, manifesting. And I was like, that will be my next vehicle. And then we started dating, and he was like, so didn't you just take out a loan for your master's that is the same price of that X5? And I'm like, why are you logical?
Why?
I don't
Stop
like
the
it.
logic. I don't like it.
Yeah. So anyways, I never got the X5, but
You got
probably good. It's
the
probably good.
education instead.
I did, you know.
And look where you are
Education.
now.
It's the gift that keeps giving.
Author,
Podcast interview.
podcast interviewing. She's going
Yeah.
to be running her own
Here we
podcast. So that's how we met. And we are going to talk about your book today, The Amazing Journey.
Oof.
I'm so excited. I got to read the first chapter and it was amazing. And I don't know, it just really opened my eyes a lot to just the culture in general. So let's talk about what inspired you to write the book. Actually, the book, let me tell you what it's called first, Big Boned.
Yeah.
Enough.
It's Big Boned. Gosh, this subtitle really,
I love it though.
it's gone through like 700 iterations. Big Boned, the heavy truth
Yes.
about my struggle with I don't know what it is.
It's
Is it bad? I don't know my
Empty to
subtitle.
Enough. It's from Empty to Enough.
From
I
Empty
think.
to Enough. Wow, you know my subtitle better than I do. That's good. From Empty to Enough, the heavy truth about my
Love affair with food or something.
struggle with
I don't
eating
know.
disorders
Yeah,
and love
I don't-
affair, and my love affair with food. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. TBD.
TBD.
But
We'll let you
definitely
know.
Big Boned is what the book is called. That much we know. I just the sub verbiage after like actually resonated with me. So I wanted to kind of remember it. And I think the from empty to enough is it's really like a powerful, heavy thing. So forgive me, everyone, real quick, just full disclosure. I just had the flu last week, so I may sound like crap.
Don't give me. Do not give me the flu while I'm here.
I'm not
please.
contagious. So I already went through like all the iterations with the doctor. When am I not contagious? When am I safe to be around? Because obviously Tori was getting her tubes.
Yes.
So I wanted to make
yes,
sure of that.
smart.
And then obviously you were coming into town. So you are going to tell me what inspired the book.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I think we just take it back, right? So I have wanted to write this book for a really long time. So it's not like I just had the inspiration
No.
before I started writing it. I remember specifically telling the dean, Jack Slay, of our college at the time, that I wanted to write this book. And I knew my title even in college. I knew I wanted to write a book. I knew I wanted to title it Big Boned because, mom always said, you ain't fat, honey, you're just big boned. And so that, that kind of had this like theme of it was the theme of my life. I lived my life in this big boned mentality. And so I always thought that, well, if I'm big boned, I can't really change that, right? Because bones are anatomy. And so I never believed it as a lie. I really believed it as truth. And so then when I started struggling with eating disorders, and I was really in the thick of it in college, and I already knew I wanted to help people or, help them see a way out when I was even in like the biggest depths of my eating disorder. But the problem with perfectionism is that I thought I needed to be healed. I thought I needed to be over it. And so that is what kept me from writing Big Boned for all these years, for so many years. And
You're not that old, stop.
we're not. We're still. I'm
It
still
was
20.
A year feels
yesterday.
like so many years.
So many years. And so I've held off for so long because of that, because I was telling myself, you can't write a book. Like you don't know the answer to eating disorders. You don't know the answer to food addiction. You don't know the answer to being called big boned. And until you get those answers, you don't have a story to tell or to share. And so I just haven't. I've persisted in this middle for so long. And then after being in therapy for so many years and having really intuitive eating as like the flagship recovery of eating disorders be so frustrating to me, and to really think something was wrong with me. And then to switch gears and check myself into rehab and to understand about abstinence, and so, oh, there's this other way to recover, but then being so frustrated with, so I'm supposed to heal, like this all or nothing mentality, right? Like
Yeah.
intuitive eating, right? It's like, oh, just put some cookies on the shelf and listen to your body, and that's not the way the brain works when it's
No.
addicted,
No.
or when you're restricting even. And so feeling super frustrated with that. And then, with abstinence, of course, rehab gave me so much freedom and so much healing. And so I really attribute still being here to rehab. But also understanding that an abstinent lifestyle is really tricky when it's with food. And so leaving rehab and being like, oh, like, why is there not a better way? Why is there not this like middle ground? Why is there not living in the gray, like just being free, but maybe learning to live with an eating disorder and not trying to just eradicate it. I feel like these last 20 plus years, that's what I've been trying to do, is I've been trying to eradicate.
Yeah.
And, it's like, wait, like, why don't I figure out how to live in the day to day today? Maybe I do need abstinence today, but maybe I need, a little intuitive eating tomorrow because I'm feeling really strong, or, I've got my wits about me that day, or whatever. But, anyways, I wanted to write this book for me, really. And for anybody that's out there that's kind of going through the same thing. And it's not just for people with eating disorders, though. I think, reading the book, there's this, can I talk about like how it's structured?
Yes. Oh my God.
Okay.
Absolutely. This is a free, like, this
Okay.
is your platform. And yes, please.
Okay. So I structured the book in a way. So one caveat is ED, right? So eating disorders, ED.
Yep.
I read a book early on in my own eating disorder journey, and it's called Life Without ED.
Yeah.
And it made a profound impact on my life because during their therapy sessions, they would personify Ed as a person. And so I think in the book, actually, it's like a Darth Vader mask or something that she would sit in her therapy chair. I can't remember exactly. It's been a long time since I read that book, but that helped me tremendously to personify, to make a creature out of this awful illness and disease, right? Because it was something tangible. It was something I could like think to myself, oh, I hate this thing or this person that's really trying to get into my head all day.
Yeah.
It really helped to put a label on it. And so I still do that today. I still talk about my eating disorder as Ed. And I'm not trying to vilify anybody that has like a lovely Ed in their lives.
Just like Karen's got villain.
Yes.
Karen.
That's so true.
I feel so bad for Karen.
I know. So the book, the way I structured it, is really into thirds. And so the first third is discovering Ed. So that is my story of how I came to be with Ed, but really kind of the building blocks that got me there and the influences. And then the second third is dating Ed. So when I was hot and heavy with Ed, when we were dating, when we were really doing our dance, from bulimia to anorexia and all things in between, that's really just like me being in the thick of it, those college years, even years after. And then divorcing Ed, the last third of the memoir piece is, it starts with me checking myself into rehab.
Okay.
And so that's the last third. So not eradicating Ed, but, just like divorce, right? It's like that person is still there because you once were. And so that's certainly the case with Ed and what I've tried to portray here. And then the last entire half of the book is all self-help. So it follows the same journey. Like it's still cut into thirds, but it's like discovering Ed, all the things I wish I had known while I was developing an eating disorder, right? Like talk to me about envy and greed and social influence and how that can help or hurt someone. What to do if you think you might have an eating disorder, what to do for somebody else that you may think has an eating disorder. So all of that self-help stuff. And then the second part, of course, dating Ed, what to do when you're in the thick of it. And then the last third of the self-help is all, really about treatment, right?
Yeah.
And how to seek treatment. And then it kind of goes into really my piece of like what has helped me, which is really that living in the gray,
Mm-hmm.
in the middle, and what does that look like? How do you get there? How to set yourself up for success, kind of thing.
Yeah. I feel like giving it an identity like that, giving it a persona, as you said, kind of helps you get to the point where you can learn boundaries. Because I feel like when it's just something in your life that you can't really tangibly like actually evict.
Yeah.
Because I think like what you were saying about how you just kind of thought you could get rid of it, or like even if abstaining, like somehow magically it's going to go away. Like it never goes away. Like addiction or, an
Right.
affliction from those things. I think being raised in the religious upbringing that you and I were in, we were given this misconception that you can just be radically healed from something
Mhm.
and that it's just going to like go away. And I think what you're doing and giving it boundaries and learning boundaries, and that's something that's there. And one day when I'm strong, I'm going to exercise this type of behavior. And one day when I'm not, I'm going to exercise this behavior. And it's a human experience. And
Yeah.
that makes it so much less, I don't know, despair filled, I guess. I would
Right.
feel like I think
Right.
it would be really hard. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, to deal with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm never, I wouldn't say that I've like lived like anything close to what you've gone through, but everything that you say like hits a nerve as a
Mhm.
female and someone who's in the age bracket, you and I talked about before this about diet culture.
Yeah.
And about how, I mean,
Such a
she's younger
huge
than
influence.
me, but, our parents were part of that first diet culture. Fat-free, everything,
Girl,
diet soda.
Spray butter. Can we talk about
Spray
spray butter
butter.
and Splenda? Oh my God. My neighbor and I the other day. Yeah.
Splenda's the new one, dude. It was aspartame. It was sweet and low back when we were kids.
Sweet and low.
I have a friend who puts
packets.
Swear to God, Bible, she puts sweet and low in her water with lemon and she drinks. That's how she drinks her water.
Oh, my neighbor and I were just
like,
talking
"Girl,
the other day about
so gross."
lemonade. Bring me some lemons with my water, and then I'm gonna make some lemonade with this Splenda.
Yes, that's literally what she does. I don't know how she does it because I do not like sweet and low. I never have.
Sweet and low is so strong.
It's
So strong.
yeah,
Potent.
and it like leaves the taste. Now, don't get me wrong, and do have a problem with an occasional Diet Dr. Pepper or Dr. Pepper Zero, which is the worst. But I'm like starting to get to that point now where I can like taste it. So that kind of bothers me.
I can totally taste it now. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was a Diet Coke fiend for so many years. But I did. Okay. So here's one thing is like, did you ask me? I think you asked me what inspired you, right?
Yeah.
There's one thing that always stays very ever present in my mind, and that is a couple years after college, and I was still, of course, Ed and I were still pretty hot and heavy. My college roommate really struggled with addiction, and so she was on her path to recovery, and so she invited me to, I don't know if it was NA or AA, I don't know. It was one of the fellowship, either Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous, but she invited me to one of her CHIP meetings. And so CHIP meetings, is like if you've been sober for 30, 60, 90, a year, 2 year, whatever, you have CHIPs, right? And so a very significant thing during your sobriety journey. And so she had invited me because I think it was like her 1-year CHIP. It was a big deal. And, as we were sitting there knowing that so much of this resonated with me, and with my struggle with Ed. And at that point I hadn't really found the fellowship on my own in terms of like Overeaters Anonymous, because they also have EDA and OA, Eating Disorders Anonymous, and Overeaters Anonymous. But I had really only found the fellowship through her at that point. But so as everyone's getting their sobriety chips, they asked if anybody wanted to get up and say a quick word about just sobriety in general. And this man stands up, and Tiff, I remember it just so vividly. He stands up and he says, "I've been sober for 11 years."
Wow.
11 years. And he said, "I wish I could give every one of you in this room this gift that I have." And he just talked about the absolute immense joy that he had, immense joy. And you could see it. You could see it on his face. He looked free.
Yeah.
He looked free. He looked rested. He looked like
Yeah.
not wayward. Like he just looked free. And the joy and the tone in his voice. And I mean, it really struck a chord with me. And I sat there and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I want whatever this man has. And he goes, I want to say a word. And he said, it finally came to me. Sobriety came to me when I learned how to live with addiction and not live without it. And so I sat there and I was just like, I mean, here I am, I'm like, me and Ed, we're having a good time.
Right.
I'm looking good. I'm feeling good, whatever. I mean, I'm definitely sick, but I was way in the trenches. And so, but I still, the words that were being said, I was like, oh my stars, like, what is he talking about? And I knew, I was like, he's giving us all a nugget.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do with that nugget, And so, I mean, this was years before I had checked myself into rehab. This was years before. And so it was like, but I knew that whatever he was talking about, that was the thing that I wanted to share with the world, like that's the thing that I wanted people, even back then, before I'd even written a word of Big Boned, that is what I wanted to give people was that,
Yeah.
just what a gift. Like
Seriously.
and that man, I still like, I remember every word, and
That's
leaving
amazing.
there and just knowing, like, okay, whatever that is, whatever that was in that room, that's it. That is it.
And I mean, it sounds like you really took that and created this whole experience that we're now going to get to go on. And I'm grateful.
I hope so. There's a lot of, there's so much self-doubt, right? With writing a book. It's a weird place to be because you're like, I've got a story to share and I want to share it.
Right.
But also it's super vulnerable to be, again, perfectionism, the whole, which just goes hand in hand with Ed. But it's like, I don't want to put it out there and it not be well received. And I don't want to get a bad review. And what if somebody doesn't believe the way that I believe?
It's okay. Let them.
Yeah.
That's where I'm living right now, girl.
Mel Robbins.
I am living there. I'm loving it. It's helping me so much because I don't know. I was a people pleaser and, kind of lived in that lane of unattainable perfection, wanting to fit in or be accepted or whatever. And I don't know. I just, let them. It's really a powerful thing. Let them. I think that you're going to touch more lives than those maybe few naysayers. I wouldn't even worry about them.
Yeah.
They're not even on the radar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're like, okay, finally, this is my story to tell. And you've wanted to write it since college.
So yeah, I've wanted to write it since college, but clearly could not just do it. Right.
Yeah. Tell me how you actually decided finally, because you said I needed to be finished. I needed to be on the other side. So I know personally, because we've had this talk already about this specific thing, but tell me what finally caused you to push play. Like I'm doing this thing. Like I don't have to be finished.
So I think I've always had in the back of my head, I cannot be 80 years old waking up with regret, right?
Yeah.
And so I see that a lot with my mom and her own journey and her own desires of career and wanting to write a book even.
Oh.
And so, I think that has been in the back of my mind this entire time. And of course, I've had close friends that have been rooting me on this entire time. But I've taken so many writing classes, right? Like how to write, how to empower people, right?
Mm-hmm.
How to be the voice behind the pages, all of that. And while all of that's great, no one has taught me the business of writing a book, right? And I don't mean making money, right? I mean, hey, a memoir is 40,000 words, can be 40,000 words. It can be up to 70, nobody's told me like that, right?
Yeah.
Save money for a penny a word for editing, or did you know that you can actually write a book pretty quickly if you have an outline, right? And here's the outline. And so I don't know, I fell into some Instagram ad trap. This was when I was pregnant with Margot. And so I took a course from a company called Self-Publishing School.
Mhm.
And Chandler Bolt, he's kind of the head of the school. And it was really all about the business of writing a book. And
Yeah.
it was, I don't know, maybe an hour-long webinar. And I left the webinar being like, oh my goodness, like out of all the courses I've taken, and no one said, hey, this is what you're writing. You're writing a self-help memoir. I didn't even know, because I knew I wanted to share my story, but I
Yeah.
also wanted to have that self-help portion. I didn't know what that is. I didn't know that there was a self-help memoir genre, So then I was like,
Right.
oh, my entire story, it has to be a story. And then I can't do self-help, but then maybe nobody wants to hear my story. And then it just needs to be self-help, And so anyways, I get off this webinar. Here I am, very pregnant with Margot, and I'm about to be 40. And I'm like, it's now or never. Like, we got to do this thing. And then, of course, I was like, I'm going out on maternity leave. This is going to be the greatest time to write. Why did I think that?
I don't know. Because you're delulu after, like, when you're
You
pregnant,
are
you're like so delulu. You're like, oh, I forget all the chaos that was there.
Oh, wait. No, you have no time in between feeding
and then you're like so brain dead.
You're
you're just sitting there like, what is happening in my life?
Yeah.
When do I have to nurse this? A baby crying?
Well, and I still, I work full time. And so I was like, this is my only chance.
That's why you thought that. That's why you were delulu, because you work a full-time job. So she's a full-time boss, babe. And she wrote a book and she got 3 kids. So good Lord, girl.
Yeah. Well, you're
Kudos
also
to you.
a boss, babe.
I know.
You have your quiver is fuller than mine. Okay.
It's just been fuller longer, babes. I got started a long time ago. When I was just a wee lad. I mean, girl lass. Wee lass. I didn't have a section before.
Oh my gosh. So
can't take me anywhere.
No. So SPS have this webinar, sign up for their program. And it was, I think my first consult, this gal on the phone was just like, why are you so worried? You're thinking that you need to write an autobiography and you're not dead and you're not famous. So like, no. And a memoir is just part of your story. It's not nobody's finished telling their story.
Right.
Write the freaking book.
I love that, actually. I think that's
Love
the
it.
most powerful thing that like literally happened to you during this process. It was like, just write the damn book.
It's so freeing.
That was because no one had given you that perspective before.
Right.
Because your perception is how you operate in your reality. So it doesn't even have to be real life. If we don't know that information, then we just stay within the confines of our mind.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm continually trying to learn, and which is why I love doing this, because I learn more and more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just your brain got expanded. That's all.
Right. So I was like, okay, this is incredible. Where do I sign?
Woohoo.
Let's do it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I just had a child. And no, I cannot do this. So, I would write bits and blurbs every now and then. But the really cool thing about SPS is that you get a mentor author when you sign up for their program. And so I had a mentor the whole way that was like, okay, what are you going to, I need you to pick up the pace. I was like, okay, well, I have a kid here on the tit and a diaper on, but sure, I'll give you 1,000 words by tomorrow. I don't know. That was fantastic. Right. And yes, it is a paid program, but when was I going to write the book otherwise?
Right.
I needed an accountability
Yeah.
partner. And so I really feel like that's what SPS gives you is a chance to have that partner in your writing journey and say like, hey, have you done your mind map? Hey, have you done your outline? Hey, can I see the first 5 chapters? And so they really guide you along the entire process. And man, it is a process,
Yeah, kudos to you for going through it. I don't know that I could. I don't know that my brain even remotely works that way. So,
well, and we haven't even talked about like editing, which is a whole, I've been editing with Joy, my editor, who I love. She is the reason that Big Boned is going to be what it is.
And what a great name
Joy.
to bring into it. You know what I mean? Joy at the end of the journey, just to like have that really cool name. I'm such a weirdo, but like, I just love that her name is Joy.
I need to go back and put that in my acknowledgements.
Seriously.
Joy at the end of the journey.
It's so
she really
amazing.
is. Yeah.
I have goosebumps like on me.
Yeah, she's been with me since, gosh, I think May of last year. So we
Yeah.
have been at this a really long time.
And the book is going to be released in 8 weeks from now. And we are currently recording. This may not be out there just yet, but we are currently recording toward the end of February. So
Yes.
this may come out March 1st. I don't know. We'll see how quickly my editor
I know.
my editor of production can get this done. But so you had your editor all along the way. The book's going to be released in 8 weeks, and we are going to link all of your socials in this description on the side here. So hopefully you'll like the video and stay tuned. That'll all be uploaded, and then that way you can go follow her on her YouTube, where she'll be able to give updates.
Girl.
She's not a social
I'm not.
media person right now, but we are manifesting
trying.
that for the future.
That's a weird thing too, right? Like it's like uncomfortable. Like I don't want to be social. I like
Not being, you're
not
so
being.
social.
No, I am social, but I don't, again, it's just like, it's a weird place. So now I'm
being on
selling.
display, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it a little different.
Yeah. And it's still, I mean, that's the whole thing.
And it's a very intimate part of your life. I think that's like something to be commended, that you're sharing like a really vulnerable part of your life with strangers.
Yeah.
In hopes of helping people, because you don't want them to go through what you went through.
Right.
And that is a very noble thing. And I am grateful that you did it, because that is a brave thing. And this is just the beginning of your book writing journey. I mean, we've already talked about the fact that I think she's got like 2 other books lined up, and it's like, once you write one, you write 10. But
Is it? I love that.
I don't really.
You just pulled that out of absolutely nowhere. But it's true? I don't know.
I mean, that's what I've heard. I don't know. I'm not writing a book, so. But
what did you say? Once you write one, you write
10.
Oh,
You
Lord.
ready, girl? One a year for the next 10 years.
A traditional publishing route if that's what's going to happen.
We'll see.
Yeah,
Who
we'll
knows
see.
what your journey is? You might be so inspired to do so many different things from here.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is yours.
The world is my oyster.
Yeah. And you get to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
But the book, I'm super excited to read it. And I actually know quite a few ladies that are really excited to read it. I know it's not geared strictly towards female. It's for anybody who struggles with eating disorders. And it doesn't matter whether you're male or female. This book will really help you get that identification in your life and whatever Ed looks like in your life, because Ed does look different in everybody's lives. It's not the same one size fits all.
No.
I don't think it is for alcoholism either, or any other thing, but I think that's the most important thing, because I was telling her, I really felt that you can have an eating disorder, but you can also just have disordered eating and have a disordered eating mindset to where you hyperfixate on things. And so it's caused me to do a lot of self-reflection, thinking about my relationship with food through my lifetime. And that has been like, wow, something that I never really sat back and pondered. I always took for granted my genetics until I hit perimenopause. And then it was like, I didn't have that like in my back pocket anymore. And so, I told you how heavy that felt. And so to think that someone that's perfectly young and perfectly healthy, college age person had that gorilla on your back, and for a while you make friends and you're like you said, in the thick of it, it's kind of like exciting, kind of like I think when people do drugs, like they
or
kind of, or an affair, like flirting with these things that are like very dangerous to us.
Yeah.
But then we think we're invincible and we think that we're going to beat it until the imbalance of power comes.
Well, and socially and culturally, you have praise, which is the most effed up thing about all of this. People start, whether, anorexia or bulimia or binge eating disorder. I mean, runs the gamut, but you hear, you get positive feedback, right?
Yeah.
And so, oh, you look so good now. What are you doing?
Right.
Are you working out?
I
And
mean,
are
I'm
you
guilty
losing
of doing that.
weight?
Like, if you see someone who's lost like 100 pounds, I'm like, dang, what are you doing? Like, like it's impossible not to have that reaction. Like, you want to give them the kudos that you feel like they freaking earned. Cause I know what losing weight feels
Yeah.
like. Like, I know. But then
But
you're
we
like,
don't
some
know.
people ignore it. Some people ignore it. Like, I was in a group, like, watching a bunch of people losing weight and saying, no one said a word. Like, I lost 60 pounds and no one said a word.
Mhm.
And it really hurt their feelings. But then other people who got validated almost went the other way. Like, oh, what? You didn't notice me before and now you do? I mean, I just feel like there's this
Yeah.
volatile pendulum that swings when it comes to like eating disorders or
Mhm.
weight. I mean, for example, this is like in my brain, so I got to get
Yeah.
out. Think about Lizzo, dude. Think about how she was so proud and like obese,
Uh-huh.
right? And so she created a brand. She's freaking amazing. I
Yeah.
love her.
Yeah.
And I mean, she was even vegan, which is like totally confusing for other reasons, that just this whole thing. But like, I've watched her journey. Like,
Uh-huh.
I've watched her show, and she was like, you got to be like a big girl to be one of my dancers. You know what I mean? Like, she
Okay.
would not let a skinny girl be one of her dancers. Like, you had to be a big girl.
Okay.
So that's interesting. Like, we have like
That is
some
interesting.
reverse
We
inclusion,
do. Yeah. Yeah.
And, as a society, trying to be so PC all the time now, it's such a landmine of what are you going to say that's wrong? What are you going to say that's right? I mean, it is horrible. It is like, you can't do anything right. You can't congratulate somebody on losing weight because that's wrong. You can't ignore it because that's wrong.
Mhm.
You have to accept all body sizes. I mean, and then you have all these shamers out here. I mean, it's just so screwed
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
It is so screwed up. I mean, think about it. Like, we literally have TLC television show, My 600-Pound Life.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
People are like so addicted to that show.
Addicted to that
I used to
show.
watch that show in 2014 and 15. Like, it's sad. I don't know why people don't think it's sad. It's so sad. It like breaks my heart that people are literally living in that prison.
Well, they're dying too.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Because it's like bigger than just this freak show that people treat it like on TV. And then
Yeah.
there's like the 1,000-Pound Sisters or Best Friends or something. Have you
I don't
seen that
even
one
know.
on? Oh my God, TLC is like a nightmare for like all the things. Like, you ever seen My Strange Addictions? I mean,
No.
it's so messed up.
Clearly, I need some cable television right now.
I saw this on Facebook. This chick was addicted to snorting baking soda. Baking soda.
What
And they
does that
have her
do
like
for
sticking
you?
her nose. I don't know. Girl, it's these strange addictions. I don't freaking know.
I need to
I
know
don't
what
e-
that does.
I don't even know in what universe. I just wanted to be able to see the screen. That's my OCD. Not real OCD. Sorry. I don't even try to joke about that one anymore because I can cut all that out.
No. Yeah, we could.
Back on track. Back on track.
Yeah, it is. It's really tough to know what to say and when to say it and how to say it, and I mean, I am very sensitive on if I see someone losing weight, on what to say, because I know, I've been there. I feel like in the book specifically, I have a whole chapter dedicated to kind of the very pivotal moment of when I started to take action with Ed.
Yeah.
And it was all because somebody overshared,
Yeah.
and so I think for me, I never want to feed into Ed, right? Like if someone is losing weight unhealthily,
Oh, I
like
see.
unhealthily. Is that a
Yes.
word?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I never want to be part of that. I never want
Yeah.
to encourage. And so, even those closest to me, family, that you should kind of be able to say anything to if I see someone, getting thin or too thin or gaining. I never, ever, ever say anything. I just,
That's a really interesting, like, situation to find yourself in.
yeah, yeah. I know when I was really in the thick of it, I had so much of that coming at me, so much of that. And it really encouraged me to stay the course with that. It solidified what I was doing, and I was dying to live or dying to be thin, and my uncle on his deathbed, who had never so much as said a word to me, a friendly word to me anyways, and definitely had never said, I love you. My mom had encouraged me to go see him when he was near death, even though, I had my reservations.
People can say crazy things when they're near death, like
Yeah.
literally because they're not in their right mind sometimes. It depends on what they're dying of.
Well, and I walked in and I mean, I was pretty emaciated at that point. And he, I mean, rose up in that bed and just said, "Come here, girl. You look incredible. You know, you are finally the way that God made you to be."
Whoa.
And those words have really penetrated every cell of my being, you know,
Wow.
since
That's really
that
screwed up.
day. And so that's been hard, you know. It's been like, okay, I cannot be that influence for somebody else. I cannot, you know. So anyways, that's why I just try to leave commenting on anybody's body just to nothing,
general,
you know,
yeah.
like just, I don't need to comment on somebody's weight loss or weight gain.
True.
Like as long as you're healthy and you're feeling good, I just, you know, I have a hard time too with like the body positivity, piece, like,
Mhm.
oh, let me own this, you know, like, let me not worry about it. But really, for me, I mean, I'm 40, I have 3 young children. I have to stay alive for my
Yeah,
babies. And
exactly.
so right now, I think the shift has really been less about
Vanity.
looking good,
Mhm.
you know, and being pretty. I'm so sick of the whole being pretty. And
Yeah, because you're freaking gorgeous anyways. Like you are so stunningly beautiful. I've always thought that about you. So it just breaks my heart to see how that relationship with Ed can like really deteriorate your actual ability to see yourself.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
And the influence of others, you know,
Yeah.
on that. So, but also, you know, people, uh, they don't know, they don't spend time educating themselves. And so I think too, like Big Boned is not just for the person that's going through it, right? It's for the person that's on the exterior. It's for the family member. It's for the teacher. It's for somebody who, you know, says, "Oh, why can't they just eat a burger? Or why can't they just work out? Do they not know how to, you know, control their appetite? Do they not know how to portion control? You know, things like that. That it's not about. I don't expect everybody to just be like, "Oh, let me go," you know, type into Chat GPT, like, teach me about eating disorders. But like
Yeah.
understanding, all you have to do is understand that somebody's going through. You know, you don't have to have a full, you know, I don't know, background or history or knowledge or experience with eating disorders personally. But I think just understanding that way you can really think about what to say and how to treat people that are going through it. Because everybody knows somebody who has an eating disorder. Everybody.
Oh.
You may not know it, but you do.
I definitely, thanks to you, have become far more, what's the word? I don't want to say aware, but yes, aware, thoughtful, pensive, kind of just like sitting back, like the matrix is opening up and just thinking about it, because I think the problem with Ed and the problem with eating disorders in general is the acceptance, because no one sees the people dying
It's so true.
until they're dead.
Because
But
it's
with alcohol,
food.
yes, because alcoholism,
food,
they're like,
Tiff.
oh, well, the bottle, blah, and they're just like throwing all this blame. But like, you have to eat to live. And if you have an eating disorder that is that bad, you have to deal with this demon
Yeah.
every freaking day.
Yeah. Well, and it's terribly messed up, but it's like, I don't need to go to the street corner when the fix is food.
You can go to your kitchen. You can go to Kroger.
Yeah.
You can go to any grocery
Yeah.
store. You can go through any drive-through. And that is like part of the problem.
Yes.
And those,
you know,
voices in your head, that Ed in your head,
yeah,
like literally controls you.
Yeah. Anorexia causes one of the top mental health deaths, mortality rates in the world. And people don't know it, right?
No, I
People
didn't
don't
know that.
it. And it's because like, and we don't even, I can't even imagine that we're not even like, there's no way that we're tracking this in the right way either, right?
No.
Because people are dying of suicide.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
They're dying of heart attacks, cardiac arrest. They're dying of these things, these
as
side
a result,
effects,
side
right?
effect.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it's like, I don't, I shudder at the thought of what the real stats are. I think what we have is just like skimming the surface. I don't even think that we, you know, we really know.
Do you find, or has your therapist ever told you, just curious, Is there like a comorbidity, like with an eating disorder, and something else? Because like in mental health, usually like if you're bipolar, there's something else. Or if you have
Yeah.
OCD, there's usually something else, is what I have learned. So with eating disorders, is there any kind of data that shows that there's other like mental health things that go along with it?
Yes.
And so then all of the EDs getting kicked to the curb because no one's giving it the time of day,
Yeah.
and they're giving all the other things the glory.
Yeah. And I am not truly educated and
Sure.
intelligent on that subject, but without a doubt, yes.
Okay.
Even research I was doing for the book specifically, I looked into that, right? Like how many people who have anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, um, otherwise not specified, or whatever the OSFED, all of those certainly have, trails into other mental health illness, and whether it be OCD.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering. Like a compulsivity kind of seems like it
Yes.
would go hand in hand,
Mhm.
or like an inability to control that obsessive or intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
So it just seems like those would go very easily. And like also for me being ADHD, it also makes me pause and ponder like the obsessiveness that I would get over food.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I would like recipe hoard, or I would constantly be thinking about meal planning, and everyone's like, oh my God, you're so amazing. And I'm like, no, it like literally plagues me.
Yeah.
You have no idea. Like they don't even, and they're like, you should be a chef, you should be a cook, you should be a baker. And I'm like, oh my God, I would be like 400 pounds because you taste everything that you make to make sure it tastes good to give people. And since I think I was Italian in another life and I have to feed an army of people and I make too much food all the time, I think that it's like all connected. I just think that fortunately for me, I did not get into the space where it became bigger than me.
Yeah.
I feel so lucky,
Yes.
obviously. But I definitely identify with like everything that you say. Like it just, like I feel it.
Yeah.
I just, thankfully, for whatever sets of reasons, and I don't feel ashamed, to say that, but like thankfully
You should be.
somehow
Yeah.
I feel grateful, but I don't
Yeah.
want my children to suffer with that. And that was the next thing that I was going to ask you. And I don't know if you're okay with me asking you this, but like, how does a person who's been married to Ed, now divorced from Ed, but has to live with the fact that Ed's like in your life,
Yeah.
regardless of whether you're actively involved, how does that affect your parenting? Because I need to know, because I feel like this is something that I need to understand.
Yeah, I try. Oh gosh, it is interwoven into every part of parenting. Unfortunately,
Right.
I think it becomes, for me, I think it's almost more important to focus on the traits that I see around the eating disorder. So like people pleasing, perfectionism, control, OCD, like all of those, and trying to notice those in my children.
And that will help you.
And trying to work on those things, right? Like,
okay. So that it doesn't grab hold
yes,
somewhere.
yes. Like the, really, really being, I see it in my 6-year-old, which is quite troubling that he already has really strong characteristics of being a people pleaser. And so
I think that's an oldest child thing. I'm an oldest child though.
Yeah.
Very big people pleaser.
Oldest and only.
I have so many only children in my life. What is up with this?
But I think even that aspect, making sure that like not, especially for him, oh my gosh, like let's not be so entrenched with what other people think, right? Like
that's fascinating.
Caring about yourself. And
so you just tell him like, you just need to love yourself, bubs.
Yes, because he's already very concerned about what other people think. So people think. So I, that positive affirmations, of course. I heard the other day that like between ages 5 and 8 is where you are most taking in the positive affirmation thing, right?
All right, good to know.
Yeah, 5 to 8.
Locked and loaded.
Yeah, locked and loaded. The other two I'm really, are showing no characteristics of caring about what anybody thinks. So I think we're good
for
there.
them.
But in terms of food, I think it's very, very important to involve them in food conversations. I think it's important to, talk about food neutrality, right? And talking about food in a way it's not a treat. Call it what it is. Is it ice cream? Call it ice cream. It's not a treat. We're not rewarding with food. So I try to be, Matthew and I both try to be very conscious of that. I think also educating them, right? Like, here's an apple, here's a bag of Skittles. Why do we choose an apple, right? Fill your fullness longer. It has fiber in it. Like educating them on what does the food actually include that's going to make it the better choice, right? But nothing's good or bad. It just is what it is. And so I love, there's this, I actually heard this on a radio talk show. It was about a donut, right? And so what does a donut mean to someone, right?
Mhm.
And
Oh, like if it has like some weird emotional attachment to it.
a moral meaning, right? And so
Oh.
for me, right, coming out of ed,
Mhm.
food is, or not food, the donut, right? The donut literally means life or death to me, right?
Yeah.
Like if I eat that donut on a day that I am not feeling incredibly strong and powerful against ed, it could throw me off the deep end, right? Like that could mean the next week, month, year of binging. It could mean it could be a huge detriment to my health, right? Someone who is coming out of eating disorder recovery on the other end, right? Like on an anorexia spectrum, and now they're getting to where they can eat a donut. That is a celebration of life.
Oh, I see.
Like that is an incredible milestone for that person. That means recovery. That means true life-giving recovery to that person, right?
Yeah.
But what about a donut given to somebody who lives in a food scarce environment, right? That donut is health. It's actual nutrition
Right.
to that person. Like the carbs and sugar mean everything to someone who doesn't have food, right? And so it's like
Wow.
that donut isn't bad.
Right.
Who's
Who villainized that donut?
Who villainized the donut?
Dang it.
Yeah. And so it's like that, when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect, and the list went on. I mean, they gave like so many examples of this donut. And I actually looked up the interview and I included it in the book because I was like, this is too good not to share, like this is just
Like a powerful moment. It kind of just cuts through all of the BS.
Yeah.
And just kind of really helps you get grounded.
Right.
Like in all of it. Like I'm not like that person's not like me, but there may be people like me and there's people like them and we're all a little different and there's probably a sprinkling here and a sprinkling there. And so, you gotta look at where you are.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Actually.
I love it. I love the donut theory.
That's a really good one. So and I know that you're not a doctor and I know that like, this is just me asking you as a friend who's lived with Ed and like having children myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have a curiosity of trying to understand and I'm thinking like maybe your therapist have told you something. So this is kind of why I'm asking you because I literally have no idea. And now I have to know because I'm an asshole. Okay. I'm a freaking asshole. I ask all the questions.
I've never heard that.
I'm an asshole. I'm
very
nice.
That's hysterical.
Very loving. I just have lots of questions and I always have to ask them.
That's
I'm that little kid that goes, why?
The podcast interviewer.
Why?
And not me.
I know Tim's just like this insatiable curiosity, and I do
I love it.
It helps me learn, helps me understand, and helps me evolve, and helps me be a better person.
Absolutely.
And I always want to be a better person. So let's talk about seeing someone or a child who is never full.
Oof.
And I'm talking about like real food. Like I'm talking real food. Like you should be full by now. Like even a person like me is full by now, and you notice, like, is that like something in their brain, kind of like some people have ADHD and some people have this, that, or the other. Is this something potentially in our brains that is like not wired maybe the way that it was designed to? And so therefore there's no recognition of this thing. And is this something that could lead into ed? Because it's like legit, like there's no awareness over fullness or like when you should stop eating. And I think that's weird. And I don't want to create like a stigma or say like, you should know, or like, holy crap, talk about a landmine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, like, if you come across that in your journey of people and learning and
My
things, like,
child.
is that a thing?
Uh, I don't know enough to talk about.
Can you ask somebody for me though?
I can. I'll get back to you.
I really need to know.
I will. I can tell you what I've done with my own child, because I do have one kid that has the same, never full.
Yeah,
Never full.
I do. And sneaking food,
Yeah.
which is weird to me. And I just like, it causes me to a little knee jerk.
Yeah. So a couple things I've done, because again, I am psycho about food and children.
Because you're like, I want to breed a healthy environment for my children.
Oh, it's such
do better for my children than was done for me.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
There are no happy plates in my house, okay? No happy plates.
What does that even mean?
Don't you dare tell your kids to clean their plate.
I don't do that either.
Good.
I told you the story about how my husband was like, let's race to eat.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, bro, we're not doing that.
No, food is never a race. Food is never a competition.
Right.
So what I do with my middle is couple things. Eat on a schedule.
Yeah.
So always on a schedule. You know what your kid needs, right? Like you
have you met an ADHD person? Do you think they do anything on schedule?
Pot calling the kettle.
How do you do this, Queen? Because I don't even know.
Not a schedule, but
routine?
You know your kid needs
I don't know.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and maybe two.
Oh, so you're saying like maybe we just set boundaries. Like we don't eat outside of those windows. Oh, that's horrible because we are all over the place. We're a bunch of like just feral squirrels. It's horrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, create it, like.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a thing.
So that's one thing is like you don't eat out of boundaries, because if the kid's in school, they're eating within boundaries.
But they're not. They are and they're not, because I know that my daycare will give May, she's very emotional.
Okay.
They will give her food, I think, because she seems to be like less emotional.
Okay, well, you need to talk to them about that.
I know. I'm like having so much anxiety. You have no idea.
Yeah.
But I don't think they do it. They love her. Like people love children. They become enablers. And I want to be aware. I want to live without the rose-colored glasses. I want to live in a world where Lauren has educated me to the point where I can be a fierce protector.
Yeah.
Like in the right way.
Yeah.
And help people, because I want to help people. You want to help people. That's why we get along so well, because we're passionate about helping people. We love people. We love our family. We love our friends. We want them all to be well.
Right.
And, that's why I'm an asshole. I ask all the questions. I can find out the answers. Why do I do Tiff Talks? So I could be an asshole. And it's okay.
It is okay.
I love myself.
Okay. I'm glad that you're an asshole.
Even if you don't have the answers, I'm still going to ask the questions,
I love it.
Somebody will tell me.
Okay, so schedule or trying to create one.
Yeah.
Just boundaries. Like you're not going to have, a cereal box that you carry around all day and that you munch off of. We're gonna create boundaries. I mean, we need those ourselves, right? And so I think it is very important to they're watching us, right? And so they are getting.
At least I was historically.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I mean, there were times, especially, with Henry, driving around with him as a baby in my car and being like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. I cannot be this influence. I cannot, And so I think knowing that it starts with us, really, especially when they're young.
Yeah.
And so boundaries, I would encourage you to tell your school, like, no more snacking, no more, like, have her on, schools do snacks anyway. So
I know, and they do all the bad snacks. I mean, they think it's good, but it's really bad. Lots of high fructose corn syrup stuff, like, because all the snacky stuff, the bars, the crackers.
Well, and that's another thing is advocate, right? Like get the menu, take it to the pediatrician, have the pediatrician write them a note and say, hey, have you considered XYZ, right? Like this is not healthy. My kid's first school, I took it to the pediatrician and she's like, where's the veg? There's no veg.
Yeah, they don't offer any veg snacks at all.
Yeah, so
maybe veggie straws, which are a total crock. Those are not healthy.
Oh my God, it's like sawdust in a fry. I don't know, it's so weird. Okay, here's another thing is I love the idea of, and we've done this off and on I mean, it's kids are survival, right? So like take all of this
Right.
with a grain of salt, but have baskets set up for each child, right? And that is their go-to food basket for the day, right? And so pack it with healthy stuff, pack it with a banana, an apple, a bag of whatever, I don't know, pirate's booty.
My kids love that. It's not good either.
I know,
It's
right?
like
It's
crack.
also sawdust and it smells.
It smells like
It smells like
feet.
veggie straw. Feet.
Like cheesy, nasty.
Sawdust.
I cannot handle the smell of those things.
Okay, well, not pirate's booty. Okay, but like put some like stuff that they'll like that's not,
Don't go
celery.
super granola.
Okay, you don't have to put celery in their basket,
Why
but
is celery so villainized? It's so yummy, but also if you like, but this goes back. Stand by, bear with me while we get back to regular scheduled programming.
I'm gonna villainize the heck out of that.
Celery was like a diet food.
It was a diet food.
Still to this day, I swear to God, Bible, whenever I was like eating, like trying to lose weight, everyone's like, eat celery because it takes more to burn it and it doesn't, it's full of water and blah, blah, blah. Diet talk.
My doctor told me, because she was like, what's your favorite like snacky food in the pantry? And I was like, a cashew.
I know you and I have this in common. I love that.
I love a raw cashew better than, it's just, anyways.
So good.
We are romanticizing food right now.
But since we haven't eaten today, we've had coffee. We're going to take a break, come back to recording later once I've had some chicken wings.
Or celery.
Celery.
But my doctor was like, you know what you need? You need some celery. That's going to
shut the front door.
Yeah. She was
like,
it's just got that crunch. It's going to satisfy you just like the cashew.
It does not satisfy you. It's not even in the same universe.
No.
That's like saying, oh, do you like the beach? Go to Alaska and freeze your ass off, or go to Bermuda and be like in divine sunshine and ocean. Not the same, lady. Not buying what you're selling. It's a bunch of crap.
I am not buying what you're selling. That is absolutely right. I'm not going to go munch on celeries. No.
It's a bunch of crap.
No.
It's a total bunch of crap. You already told me who the book's for. I mean, it's for everybody. It's for people who need to learn how to interact with someone who has a relationship with Ed. It's for people who are in a relationship with Ed. It's for people who are trying to balance life with Ed, either in the thick of it or in divorce with Ed. And then what was the hardest part, though, of like writing the book? That's what I'm kind of curious about. Like, I mean, I would think it would be reliving all this stuff, but I know there's like a whole handful of other things, like feeling like your family feels like you're talking crap about them or something, or blaming them. There's this whole blame society. And I'll tell you this because I have a trauma therapist coming on. She said there's this whole thing with my generation and bleeding into yours that whenever a kid has a problem, historically, they blamed the parents. It was the parents' bad parenting, which is why we dance around as people pleasers, because we didn't want to make our parents feel bad because we love them so much. Yeah. So that's a real life thing that I learned from somebody else, because I'm an asshole, that you can take with you. So tell me what the hardest part about your writing the book was.
So there was certainly a lot of that, right? Like I talk a lot in the book about my mom. And my mom is my earth angel. I love her dearly. And I think going through the book writing process, though, I think I realized a lot about my mom's own journey, and how a lot of her influence on me was experience, it was learned behavior. And so not faulting her as the person, but faulting, again, society, culture, her environment specifically, and so I think there's a lot of healing in that, and a lot of healing in talking to those people who you are writing about and saying like, hey, Mom, are you okay with this? You know, and reading her part of the book and her being like, baby, this is your story.
I love that she's so supportive, though, because let's talk about what if, because I'm a devil's advocate. There are some people out there that don't feel like they can share their journey, their burden, because their parents are not loving and are not accepted.
I have heard that from so many people. Right. And it's so sad to me because I'm like, share your story. Share your story. I have a good friend who she's been writing her book for a long time. And she's like, I cannot publish this thing until people are dead.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, dude, you're going to be dead if you don't publish it, like who knows? We're not promised tomorrow. I just literally publish the book, like talk to people, have conversations, and it is your story. I think that's what's so important. I do, um, that has been really hard. I have one chapter, the chapter that I told you about that's so pivotal for me, from where I like went with just like dancing with Ed to like, oof,
Mm-hmm.
we are just in the deep end making love. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And it's my aunt's best friend.
Yep.
And I have hesitated, and if she listens to this, she's gonna know. They're never gonna know.
They're never gonna know.
They're never gonna know.
They're never gonna know. I love that. So you can bring some levity into it.
She so I have danced around sending her that chapter because that's hard, and I don't
It's just life. It's just facts. And it's not anything other than those things.
Yeah.
And I think that honestly, that is why Mel's book, is resonating
them.
with people, is because the fact that we care more about what other people think about facts,
or about your story,
yeah, than and giving them more power over it than they deserve. It's not because we don't love you. It's not because you don't matter, because you do. But guess what? I matter too.
Yeah.
And I am going to choose me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to teach my kids to choose themselves. And I'm going to teach my kids to honor themselves.
Yes.
And that they freaking matter. And don't get me wrong. Like, I was a raised people pleaser. I did things wrong with my first kids. I was a child raising children. Don't think I don't have a whole slew of things I wish I could go back and change.
Sure.
So fortunately for you, being, like average, parental age, I feel like, and I get a second go around. My kids are probably like, wow, lucky those toddlers were born in your 40s because you're a better person now than you were. But just like realizing that you have to let go.
Yeah.
Some people say, let go, let God. I say, let go.
Yeah.
Just let go and let the universe.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that would have been the hardest thing for me. And I was just curious if that was the hardest thing for you, or if there was other things that were harder too.
Well, even my mom, seeing her be so incredibly selfless her whole life. She did everything for everyone, but in turn, we were also expected. I say we, like I was a sibling, but I was expected to please those around me and not, it all goes back to food, right? Like, eat the food that's given to you, clean your plate. If you go to your aunt's house, you better eat every morsel that's on that plate.
You better be grateful. You better not complain. Even if you don't like it, choke it down.
Sit
at the table for hours.
Yeah. And
it does create a really unhealthy relationship with food.
It does. So anyways, that was really hard. I think, again, perfectionism, right? Like, knowing that my journey is still not over with Ed, and I think here I am, I'm writing this, like, in the middle, like, living in the gray. Is a tough sell, right? Because it's like, there's no real finality to that. And considering the fact, like, will people get that? Will people understand? And so it's like, because I'm selling you something that's like not finished, it's unfinished. It's talking about living with this thing instead of eradicating it. And so, is that a good sell?
I think that's the answer. I think that is the answer. I think that's the Willy Wonka magic ticket, is that we think it's an all or nothing society. So people die because they give up.
Yeah.
Because it's all or nothing, baby.
Well, and why can't it be all or something? Why can't it be, like, the answer, I feel, Matthew says this all the time. He says, the answer is usually somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that. And so it's like, why? I would much rather live in the gray and have a little bit of freedom.
And have a life.
Yes.
And learn and feel. And the more your brain does something over and over again, the more you reroute your brain and the way you think. Mm-hmm. So through time, you will get stronger.
Yeah.
And through time, you will win more than you lose. And that's because you're stretching like a rubber band.
Yes.
What everyone is trying to make so, and what even you probably were trying to make so fragile. And people holding themselves to these unrealistic standards of, well, if I F up, then it's done. I might as well just throw in the towel.
Yeah.
And they just go on a bender or whatever. Like literally, that's the mindset. It's an all or nothing mindset.
Yep.
It's very damaging because then we're like, well, I'm not good enough. So I'm just going to be all the way bad.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go, eat
Girl, you're
cheeseburger, all the
speaking
fries,
as language
pizza.
right now.
That's what I mean. But I
Mhm.
think that like, that is why what you've done is so wonderful, because you have to treat it fragile in the beginning. You have to put like your training wheels on.
Yeah.
You have to give yourself some boundaries. You have to do your morning check-in. How am I feeling today?
Mhm.
Am I feeling strong today? Or am I feeling like if I bend in that direction today, I'm going to burn the village
Yeah.
down. I'm going to fall apart. I'm going to eat 10 freaking donuts. Or I'm going to eat friggin' a whole pizza. Or I'm going to do things that I know that I don't want to do. What am I feeling today? Okay, I'm actually feeling emotionally fragile today, or I'm tired, or I have too much on my plate. I need to exercise this
Yeah.
pattern of behavior today for me, and that's okay. And
Well-
tomorrow or next week, maybe I'll be better.
Yeah.
But I think having that awareness and acceptance
Mhm.
and not such a rigid pass or fail mentality is where really what you're speaking to, and is really where people can heal and grow and learn how to live with it
Yeah.
and not be out of finding themselves like so out of control with it.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's my perception, my interpretation
Yeah.
of what you're giving to
Well,
me.
and I do give a big disclaimer because I think, I don't know what chapter it is, but I think it's like, let's pump the brakes though, right? And figure out where you're at, right? Because this is
Yeah.
not for everyone. This is for somebody who's like years into it or early on, where we can talk to Ed, we can integrate with Ed, right? Because I mean, clearly there are some times when you were in the thick of it, like when I needed rehab, right?
Right.
I needed abstinence when
When you went
needed
there.
abstinence,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's important to recognize that
Yeah.
it just depends on what stage you're in. I mean, if you have a kid who's going through anorexia and needs intensive inpatient, like that's not where you read Big Bone and be like, oh
Right.
my gosh, light bulb. Like, just think about how your day's going and like figure it out.
They're
you
not
know?
even developed. Your brain's not really fully
Yeah,
developed.
yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. You kind of need someone to be the training wheels for
Right.
you.
Right. And
Because
so,
you're
I
not a
mean,
grown adult with a fully developed brain that's been exercising in a fully developed brain for at least a decade.
well, and even still, it's like it's wild. Like that is what was so frustrating, is first off, like eating disorders, taboo, right? Like, what do I have? Do I have an eating disorder? Am I obese? Am I just a binge eater that's gained weight? Do I have disordered eating, or do I really have a diagnosable, eating disorder out of the DSM-5? Like, what do I have? And then
that's a valid
also,
point.
especially if you're dabbling in both, right? You've lost enough, but you're still binging and like, anyways, all of that. But then also there is that recovery mentality again, like that all or nothing, the
Yep.
intuitive eating versus abstinence, and finding out like where you're at. I had always, one thing about rehab is I had always shamed rehab. I was like, of course I can go out into the middle of nowhere and have a chef cook me meals and get better. Like, duh, give me that.
Well, and a lot of people look for that. And a lot of people say, well, I can't be sober because I can't do that. And I can't be healthy because I can't afford that.
Yeah.
And so I know people who have addictions who struggle immensely with staying in a path of wellness because they think the only way out is through
rehab.
those rehab doors. And that's something that's been glamorized or villainized, whatever you want to call it, because there's both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Some people glamorize it, some people villainize it. And to an addict, that is a safe haven.
Yeah.
They're really just looking for a safe haven.
Mhm.
They really just need to check out of all the noise that's in their brain. And
Yeah.
they really just need to get away from all the things that live in their life that remind them on a daily,
Absolutely.
minute by minute basis of what prison that they're living in, whether it's alcohol, drugs, ed.
Yeah.
Like, I think that they want to have a safe haven. They just want to feel safe.
Or you can, for me, it was more, I knew what I needed. I knew what I needed. I just didn't have the vehicle to get me there.
Yeah.
And so I knew where I was going, but I was like, I can't bootstrap this alone anymore. And clearly, like, this is getting into my marriage. It's getting into my house. It's getting into my work day. Like, this cannot go on any longer. We're 20 years on this thing. Like, let's tackle this.
Yeah.
And so I think rehab is an absolute necessity for people who need it. But it's like, I
Also gave you a starting point, kind of.
It
I mean,
did.
like in your recovery and
It really did.
how to manage your relationship with that. I mean, it gave you that starting point, and I think some people really need that.
And rehab is so much more. In my brain, when I was, romanticizing rehab, right? Like, oh, of course I can get there with the prevention, whatever. It was nothing like that. Okay.
I love you.
There's a lot of hard things that go on at rehab. You're in
Yeah.
therapy all day long.
Yeah.
And so, it's so funny you talk about OCD. Like the first night we checked into rehab, you give everything away because you can't have anything. So you can't have cell phones, you can't have watches, you can't have anything. And we're in our like first meeting of the night to go through like, how days are going to be structured or whatever. And I'm like, does anybody have the time? I don't see a clock anywhere. Does anybody have the time? Is it like 6 p.m. or is it 9 p.m.? I don't know the time, and I need the time.
I need a time now.
I need the time. And I will never forget the head of the rehab. She was like, oh, okay, like you're going to have some big issues here, like and now I totally get it, right? Nobody wants to know that it's 8 a.m. and you still have 12 hours of therapy in the day left. Nobody wants to know that, right?
You
don't want
didn't
to
know
see
that
clock
then.
ticking down. You do not. And so I get it. But man, yeah, there's a lot of healing that goes on outside of just having a chef cook you abstinent meals, while you're there. But I found it really interesting because the rehab that I did go to was for all addiction. So it wasn't just
I know. I
eating
found that to
disorders.
be very fascinating, actually.
Yeah. So we had males, females, we had, heroin addicts, we had porn addicts, we had some other stuff there. And then we had eating disorders.
But nobody snorting baking soda.
No one's snorting. I mean, who knows? I don't know.
That was an ill-timed joke, but I can help myself.
I don't think that was very PC, Tiff.
It was on TLC. It's on television. I was just like, what is happening in my life right now? Sorry, I'm not over it. I cannot get that image out of my head. I cannot imagine you walking into a facility that's handling all of these mass broad spectrum addictions.
Yeah.
Or just.
But it's interesting because it's like, the thing I go back to my friend from college that I was sitting in the fellowship meeting and it made such a big impact with that man talking about his sobriety. I go back to that because I feel like that friend and I, we knew, like, while hers was heroin and mine was food.
Yeah. We
knew. We were like, we have something in common here, And so it's like, that's the same thing with rehab. I mean, we all were on the same diet, the abstinent diet. And so, which is interesting because it's like the whole point, of being in rehab, and I totally see it, like the abstinence piece is like all of your therapy you're doing without stimulants, right? And that's where you need to be, is raw and real, right? Like you cannot be consuming stimulants while you're getting rid of these, mental health demons that you have. I mean, it was such a powerful thing that it's like, oh, this is life.
So are people not allowed to smoke cigarettes there?
Absolutely
because
not.
I feel like Alcoholics Anonymous is like nicotine haven.
Stop.
Only because I literally was involved with someone who was an alcoholic and I'd never been in that world before.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like right at 29, 30 years old. And I'm in the thick of it with this person who is like literally a raging, functioning alcoholic. Nice person, but every day at 5 o'clock had to start chugging the vodka.
Okay.
And, that was a weird place for me to live. Yeah. That definitely was not helpful with my CPTSD and the whole needing for safety. That was an interesting experience on my journey. But like seeing that addiction up close was not something that you cannot forget. But I mean, that person is now sober. As far as
Wow.
I know, they're still sober. And that
Yeah.
makes me so happy because I was the one who was like, you are an alcoholic. Like, you are an alcoholic. And that person was like, so basically, like, whatever. But after time, I think being told the hard truth of something they already knew
Yeah.
and seeing how it was like derailing their entire life. And they were, up in years. So it's like, you only have so much life left here. Like, you're more than midlife.
Yeah.
Like, when
Yeah.
you're 50, you're more than midlife, probably. I mean, maybe you'll live to 100,
Yeah.
but
So do you think like you expressing that really helped them?
I do. There was also a very pivotal moment in their life that they had when they were in a different location than me. That kind of shook them
Okay.
because they had never had like any real
Yeah.
like shaking of traumatic events. And they
Okay.
had like a traumatic event associated with that because usually if you get really, really wasted, like you can black out and forget.
Yeah.
But if you go to jail, then you don't. You suddenly remember and it becomes the whole thing. And I'm just so grateful that they found
Yeah.
their journey to sobriety because it was really robbing them of good experiences in their
Yeah.
life. But with eating, back again to the ed, it's so hard because you are forced to be in the world of
Yeah.
that all the time because you
Yeah.
have to eat to live.
But also, people with addiction, people with eating disorders specifically, the alarm is faulty. Like the brain does not work that way.
Right.
And so when people want to shake people, and I think it's incredible that that worked for, this person.
Oh, I mean, I don't take any credit for that at all. I just kept putting the truth in front of that person's face because I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
It was not because I'm a good person or because I did anything. I just am glad that it worked for them.
Right.
Whatever happened to them and whatever
Yeah.
chain of events, you cannot handle eating disorder situation even remotely the same. It's not even really the same. So delicate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it really is the brain doesn't work that way, right? When people say eat a hamburger, you can eat this. Like when you're trying to love on an anorexic with food, that doesn't work. When you're trying to love on somebody with binge eating disorder or with bulimia, that doesn't work. That doesn't work, right? You have to understand that the alarm is faulty, right? And so it's like red light, red light, red light every time an anorexic gets around food, right? Or you're saying eat a hamburger. No, that's a big red light for them. And so it's very hard for someone just commonplace to be like, you can't do this. You're killing yourself. I had so many. Well, I say so many, it really wasn't so many. There were like a handful of people during my journey. One was my roommate. I had my like sorority big sis, and then I had a frat guy, and then one of my professors, right? So 4 people during my college journey that were like, you are killing yourself. My my anatomy professor had me come to his office after class one day, and he was like, I know exactly what you're doing. I know exactly what you're doing. And he was like, I want to meet you where you are. I want to help you. I want to give you an outlet, like I'll do X, Y, and Z with you before class if it helps, or, we can, he was incredibly loving, and he didn't try to fix me with food. He didn't try to say like, you have to do like whatever, but he was just loving and nurturing, but still none of that really helps. But it's like, those seeds were planted, right? And I think people, of course, need to continue planting seeds, but it's so much bigger than that. And it's so much bigger than, portion control for somebody that is bulimic or has binge eating disorder. You can't, you can't. Trust me, those people would if they could.
If they could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably no greater desire for those people. But, when serotonin and dopamine aren't working in the way that they need to because they've been trained by this person who is diseased, like it is not their fault. No one caused this eating disorder, like they didn't put this on themselves, right? It isn't them. And there's a whole other host of brain function that causes an eating disorder, right? And so it's like all of that amalgam of things. And I talk about this in the book a lot, but I think I say like F the why, and it's like, I don't mean don't unpack things, right? We need to unpack. We need to go to therapy. We need to have help for, the drunk uncles that talked about how fat we were, or, the grandma that made you run circles around her apartment building to lose weight when you were, 5 years old. I think all of that stuff is worth unpacking, but the amalgam of what causes an eating disorder is so great. It is such a complex interplay of genetics, right? Biology. I mean, biology, it's like, are you predisposed? Sure. Like, could that cause it? Yes. Could not having it not cause it? No, right? Like anybody can have an eating disorder.
Yeah.
But it's not just biology, right? It's society, it's cultural, it's all of that put together. So when somebody's like, "What causes an eating disorder?" It's like, well,
How much time do you have?
That is, yeah. How much time do you have? And that is truly a loaded question. Like, there's no.
It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, you can't pinpoint it, right? Like, if I go back, I mean, I had so many negative influences, so many teachers, friends, parents, my dad. I mean, my mom with her food, happy plates and whatever. It's like, I mean, was there one thing? Probably not. Probably no way. I mean, there's, again, it's
like a perfect storm.
It's a perfect storm. My aunt had an eating disorder. So it's like, okay, was that, where is that in like the whole biology thing or like neurobio, like if I already have chemical imbalances because I have other mental health problems, then is it causing, this other eating disorder? If I'm an athlete, like what, this is the sport I'm in, super conscious about weight, right?
Oh, I never even thought about that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Because you have to like weigh in for wrestling and you have to weigh in.
If you're a horse jockey. I
Oh
mean,
my God.
there are so many sports, gymnastics. I mean, the list goes on.
Wow.
I think it's
figure skating probably too, just like a million things. I've never even light bulb.
Yeah. So but it's not like the sport that's, it's like, am I made up a certain way? Do I have all these negative influences already? And then this adding to it, And so I think it's just knowing that you'll never know your why. And that, that was a tough pill for me to swallow for a really long time, is that what caused this? Like, why am I like this? Like, why?
Everyone wants to know why.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so funny because my therapist said, Tiffany, it doesn't fucking matter. That's what she said to me. She said, you need to set it down, girl. I'm going to save you a bunch of time. She said, the why doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Excuse my language, but that's what she said. So we know why you wanted to write the book. We knew how you took the idea basically into it, what it is now, that it's not a how-to book. It's a memoir, and it's really to help what I feel like has done for me already. And I haven't even read the whole book. You know what I mean?
Not a how-to, but a me too.
Me too. I love it. And, to help people like me kind of get through things to say, things not to say, so that we are not saying the wrong things. And I think the last thing that I'd kind of like to end on, since we've gone on along a little bit here, is that what would you recommend for someone who's reading this book who thinks, wow, I don't think I ever knew that I have an eating disorder, but I think I see Ed now. Because sometimes I think Ed lives in the recesses. Ed's a very silent character in their life, and they have become unaware, or they have made him invisible, but he's still there. So I would like to know what kind of resources do you think would be beneficial to them? And do they need to get a specific therapist who can help identify eating disorders?
So I have a lot of that in the book. And I have a free resource
Another reason
guide
why they need to get the book
as well. I think it's really important to assess a therapist. Yes. Someone who has experienced an addiction, I think, is really important. I think eating disorder experience is tremendously important.
So as we wrap up here, I want to ask one last question. How are people going to be able to get your book?
So
how are they going to order it?
So Amazon,
okay,
primarily,
okay,
and then I'm going to try to get it into bookstores. There's a whole that whole piece of publishing is still the wild west for me, so I have to figure that out. But Amazon is who I'm publishing with initially.
Yeah, I think that's golden. That's the right way to go, because everybody everywhere has Amazon, I feel like. So I just think that is the most wise way that you could actually do it.
Yeah. And we're going to do a soft launch on Amazon first through the publisher. And then I don't know how long the soft launch is, but that's like to get reviews and to get traffic.
Sure. Will I be able to access that?
Yes, you will.
Yay.
You will. so it'll be available for on-demand print, and then I'm actively recording the audiobook, but that won't be out probably till like 8 weeks after.
I thought you had to like set up in your house and do all of that, get all your recording stuff.
Oh,
No?
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, look at you, girl.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
making all kinds of strides.
Well, it's like you can pay a studio thousands and thousands of
thank
dollars
you.
to
You
record.
don't need to.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're doing audio though, because there are people like me who cannot sit down and read a book because my
Absolutely.
life is too insane. And so I appreciate, thank you for doing
Yeah.
that.
That's how I ingest information is audiobooks and podcasts. So I can't imagine being like, everyone must buy my printed book.
I mean, I want
And then
to, don't
also
get me
buy
wrong, but I
the
have to read.
nightlight that you have to read it with. But, you know?
I love those people that can sit down and read a book and have the attention span. I am not one of those people. I want the information. I even like having the paper to like reference back to,
Yeah.
but I have to hear it. Like I have to hear it. I have to be able to multitask. Like I'm in my car, and that downtime for me is such a treasure to be able to listen to a book or while I'm cleaning the house. And I feel like, yeah, that's why it's so important.
Yes.
And that's why, like for my podcast, I have an Apple podcast so people can just listen. And then I have the YouTube version for people who have the YouTube that I have, which is you
Yes.
can listen to it while you're doing stuff. You don't have to watch it entirely, because some
Right.
people feel like you have to just sit down and watch it like it's a TV show. I'm like, no, you don't have to. You can just take it in segments and
Yeah.
and whatever and digest it. But I'm glad that you're on Amazon. I'm glad that you're doing Audible. I'm so glad that you agreed to come on the podcast to promote your book,
Thank you.
because I think you're amazing and I think you have such a story to share, and I think you're going to do big things.
Thanks, Tiff. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
I know.
10 years. Here we are.
10 years, girl. September. Maybe we'll be in Italy.
Wild. Please.
I
let
wanna
me be in
do
Italy.
10,
Please.
10-year friend anniversary.
That would be so cool.
All right, girl, let's
Yeah.
go get something to eat.
Please. Starving.
The things we say.